Our featured speaker is an international best-selling author who has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, seen and heard on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News. He's an award-winning TV and radio show host of Your Credit Matters. He's spoken in front of tens of thousands of people on stages all across the world. Please welcome to the stage FICO certified credit expert, Rondi Lambeth.
Thank you, Clint. Wow, Harvard. You know, a few months ago, I was standing on stage at the Sprint Center in front of 18,000 people. And I got to tell you, I'm a little more nervous here as a kid that barely got out of high school with all of you guys here, all your doctors and all MBAs and all that stuff. And just think, just a few steps from here, Facebook was created. Like it, love it, or hate it, Mark changed the world with Facebook. And as a kid, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to be a superhero. Any of you want to be a superhero when you were kids? How about Superman? Who wanted to be Superman? That's right there, Superman. How about Spider-Man? Ladies, Wonder Woman? Yeah. Even as a kid, I knew I could never be Superman because I wasn't from a different planet, even though I've been accused of being from a different planet. I knew I couldn't be Spider-Man because I'd never been bitten by a spider. Wonder Woman? Well, that wasn't going to work for me either. Right? My favorite superhero, though, is Batman, right? See, Batman was like you and me, just an ordinary man. No special powers. Yeah, he was rich, and he had multi-million-dollar gadgets and rock-hard abs, right? And with that machine, maybe you can use that, right, if you work out hard enough. But I wanted to be Batman, because he was the only one that was a real person, right? But as I grew up, I started to doubt myself. You know, Batman was rich. And he ate the finest foods and traveled in a private jet. I was poor. I lived in a shack with no running water. I ate out of a dumpster most of the time as a kid. He lived in a mansion with maids that took care of him. I had no one to take care of me. I had 13 younger siblings. I had to take care of them. He had money, and he was taught to use his money to defeat evil. I was taught that money was evil. And I started to doubt myself. Could I really become Batman? Could I really be a superhero? At 15 years old, I knew I had to get out of my environment. I told my mom. She gave me $20 in food stamps, said she loved me, and sent me on my way. I remember that night, all alone, sleeping on the cold tile in a truck stop bathroom along the highway outside Wenatchee, Washington. And laying there as a dirty, scrawny little 15-year-old kid, people would come in and they'd look at me with disdain. No one was there to help me. No hero there to help me. That morning I woke up even more determined to be a hero someday. I hitchhiked my way a few thousand miles, ended up in John Day, Oregon, where I met a man named Wally Williams who owned Driscoll's Funeral Home and Mortuary. And as a teenager, I became Oregon's first licensed funeral director / embalmer as a teenager. And I put myself through high school working as an embalmer. With that, I really enjoyed it because it gave me the respect. I was respected in the community. I had my own car, I had my own house. And even though I was still in high school, I was able to do things that a lot of the high school kids couldn't do. I was respected by the community because when someone died, it was me that would show up and console them. But it wasn't enough for that burning desire to be a hero because I was there too late. So at 21 years old, I packed up and I moved to Colorado because Denver, Colorado, was building this huge airport, DIA. And I knew there's gonna be jobs, and I knew with those jobs, they're gonna need to hire firemen. And after all, firemen are real heroes. So I moved to Denver, Colorado. No job, no house, but I was determined. In order to make it, to survive, I become a garbage man. I worked for 5 years for Waste Management. I knew a couple things. I was gonna get a steady paycheck, and it was physical. I didn't have to work out. I worked out 8 to 10 hours a day picking up trash cans, and I worked my butt off. Eventually, I got accepted to the fire academy. Shortly after the fire academy, where I excelled, I got hired by Sheridan Fire. Problem was, Sheridan Fire didn't pay anything. So I had to stay a garbage man. So I was garbage man by day, superhero fireman by night. A lot like Bruce Wayne, right? 5 years I was a garbage man. I work my butt off. Most garbage guys would walk to the trash cans. I ran to the trash cans. Most guys would drag it. I picked it up and carried it, and I dumped it. But that made me big and strong. And one day, a man named Wayne come out of his house, and he says, Rondi, I've been watching you for 5 years pick up my trash. I want to hire you. I said, that's great, but I don't want to quit my job. I want to be a fireman. He goes, I'm the chief of Littleton Fire. Right? And I know you want to be a fireman, and I'm going to hire you. A few months later, I become a proud member of the Littleton, Colorado Fire Department. I was on top of the world. My first year, I become Fireman of the Year. I thought I was Superman. And then April 20th, 1999, we got a call, simple call, sprained ankle. My partner and I got in the ambulance, drove over there like we normally do, for sprained ankle. Come around the corner, come into the cul-de-sac. There are 13 kids laying in the street, shot, bleeding. What was happening was a block away, there were 2 murderers in the Columbine High School shooting and killing people. That day was tough. Here it was me and Patrick. I'd never felt so helpless in my life because I knew we couldn't save all 13. We could only pick one. And we couldn't get out through the radio because they were still killing people inside the high school. So I grabbed Mark Taylor. He was the worst of the 13, shot in the chest, both arms, and the legs. I picked him up, stuck an IV in him, put him on oxygen, threw him in the back of the ambulance, and I drove 80 to 100 miles an hour to the hospital. I can only imagine what people thought, because in a firefighter and in the trucks, people don't hear you in the cars. So I got in the opposing traffic at 80 to 100 miles an hour. I split the Red Sea, right? But Mark made it. See, Mark didn't have minutes to make it to the hospital. He had seconds, and every second counted. But we made it, and he lived. And I was able to get through to the other firefighters, and they went and saved the other 12. But that day changed me. Yes, I was still a firefighter. I spent years being a firefighter and saving lives. Then a few years later, after a long shift, I turn on my phone, and I have all these missed calls from my mom. I didn't talk to my mom. I didn't have a relationship with my mom. So I call her reluctantly, really didn't want to talk to her. She goes, there's been an accident. I said, well, I can deal with accidents. I deal with emergencies every day. She goes, your little brother took a gun last night, shot and killed himself. This is my little brother that I left to be a hero. Here was, I thought I was a hero. I was saving lives, and yet I couldn't save my own brother. I couldn't be a fireman anymore. I wanted to save the lives before 911, not afterwards. So I gave my resignation. A year later, I left the fire department, and I founded Fortress Credit Pro, America's first 100% paid on performance credit repair and debt dismissal company. What I found with research with my brother's suicide was he was struggling with money and credit. He was struggling with a purpose. And there's many people that kill themselves. Robin Williams, Kurt Cobain. Why did they do it? Why do people kill themselves? Why do people get sick? Why do people get divorced? And really what it comes down to, the 3 Ds, death, disease, and divorce. The number one cause is stress. What's the number one cause of stress? Money Number one cause of divorce, disease, and death. I decided to create a company that would save lives before 911. So Fortress in the last decade has saved tens of thousands of lives. We've eliminated over $100 million in student loan debt and credit card debt. We put tens of thousands of people into homes that couldn't qualify because of their past. We gave them a second chance by deleting their bankruptcies, their foreclosures, their tax liens, their judgments, their collections, their repossessions. They got a second chance at life. Something my little brother didn't get. Something that a lot of your family members maybe never get. I'm no longer a fireman. I no longer get to rush into burning buildings, cut people out of crash cars, save babies. But I am a superhero, and I am changing the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Rondi Lambeth! Yeah! Wow! Great job.